Good afternoon, ma'am. We still have Major Arnab to join us. Should we wait a few minutes for him to join?
Yes, first speaker is not Arnab.
So should we wait for him to join or should I start with Chandni?
We can start with Chandni, no? I
Okay,
hope in
ma'am.
the meantime Arnab may join.
Okay, ma'am. Then with your permission, I'm beginning the thing.
Okay.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Hall B domain for the free paper presentation. On behalf of the West Bengal Cytology Society, I would like to welcome you all for the session on free papers. Today, we have two free papers. Each presenting speaker will have 7 minutes to present and 3 minutes for questions. The questions will be taken from the chat box. At the end of 6 minutes, there will be a reminder to the presenter. Our free paper session for today will be chaired by Dr. Anjali Banerjee, Madam. Madam is the Honorable Joint Secretary, West Bengal Cytology Society, life member of the Indian Academy of Cytology, and Professor, Department of Pathology, RG Kar Medical College, Kolkata, with multiple publications in various national and international journals. May I now request Dr. Anjali Banerjee, Madam, to kindly initiate the session on free papers.
Thank you, Dr. Christie. Our free paper session starts now. Dr. Christie, you please introduce the first speaker.
Thank you, ma'am. Our first speaker is Dr. Chandni Nakum of GMERS Medical College, Gandhinagar, and her presentation is on retrospective study of fine needle aspiration cytology of thyroid lesion according to the Bethesda system for reporting thyroid cytopathology. Dr. Chandni, please.
I cannot open my presentation.
Dr. Chandi, kindly unmute and share your content.
I cannot share my presentation. What can I do right now?
There is an option of share screen in front of
Yes. Yes.
you. Just click the same
Okay.
and select the presentation, doctor, and share the same.
Still, it is not opening.
Should I share your presentation, doctor?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, ma'am. Myself, Dr. Chandni Nakum. I'm a resident doctor in Department of Pathology, Gandhinagar. My topic is retrospective study of 5-needle aspiration cytology of thyroid lesion according to the Bethesda system for reporting thyroid cytopathology. Uh, as we know that the thyroid nodule are most common clinical occurrence and the frequency is increases with the age and the most common lesion are benign. 5-needle aspiration cytology plays a useful role to differentiate malignant from benign lesion, leading to most appropriate management. Because of lacks of standardized criteria, FNSC reporting interfere with the understanding of result by the clinician and it hampers the optical clinical management. So avoid its confusion in 2007 by the National Cancer Institute, Thyroid FNA of Science Conference make a form so that framework of the Bethesda system for reporting thyroid cytopathology. My aim and objectives are to categorize the thyroid diagnosis, categorize the diagnosis of thyroid lesion according to the TB-SRTC at our institute retrospectively and the FNSC of thyroid lesion compared with previous studies. I used last 2 years data for retrospective study. That include 6 category. First is non-diagnostic or unsatisfactory. Means it not contain at least 6 clusters or each cluster do not contain 8 to 10 follicular epithelial cells. In benign category, that include benign follicular nodules, lymphocytic thyroiditis, and granulomatous thyroiditis. And in third category is atypia of undetermined significance or atypical follicular lesion of undetermined significance. In this, adequate aspiration along with some atypia seen. Then fourth category is follicular neoplasm or suspicious for follicular neoplasm. In this, it is specified if the Hurther cell oncocytic type. The fifth category is suspicious of malignancy. That includes suspicious for papillary carcinoma, medullary carcinoma, metastatic carcinoma, or lymphoma. Then malignant type it includes papillary carcinoma, medullary carcinoma, or lymphoma. Total 147 FNSCs of thyroid were carried out in our department. All were classified into 6 category of TB-SRTC. In this, out of 147, 10 cases were unsatisfactory. 9 cases of benign lesion. There is no cases of AUS. There are 10 cases of follicular neoplasm, 3 cases of suspicious of malignancy, and 5 cases of malignant neoplasm. Benign lesion is most commonly seen, and the age group mainly involved is 21 to 30 years of age. And for benign lesion, most common age group is 31 to 50 years of age. Female is more commonly involved, and benign lesion is most commonly seen. Conventional reporting of the thyroid cytology lack uniform pattern, hence the produce difficulty for interpretation for clinician. So for better communication, TBSRTC recommended use of 6 categories for reporting with the hope of facility communication among the cytopathologists, endocrinologists, surgeon, and other healthcare providers, and allowing easy and reliable sharing of data from different laboratories. Now comparison of frequency of cases with other study. In undiagnostic type, in our study, there are 6.8% of the cases, which is consistent with other studies, which is ranging from 1.2 to 18.6%. In benign study, it was 80.9%, which is also consistent with other study. In follicular neoplasm, the result is 6.8%, which is also ranging from 4.2 to 11.6%. In this category, follicular adenoma and follicular carcinoma, cytologically differentiation is difficult. So both include as in follicular neoplasm. Then suspicious of malignancy, it is 2.04%. It is also ranging between 0.7 to 2.6%, and malignant lesion is 3.5%. It is also ranging between 0.7 to 7.5%. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chandni. As I can see, we do not have any questions in the chat box. May I request Dr. Anjali ma'am for her valuable remarks?
Sorry, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Chandni. There are no questions in the chat box. May I request Dr. Anjali ma'am for her valuable remarks?
Yes. Now, Dr. Chandni, you could not complete your presentation in time. So as there is no question, I am asking you one question. What is the difference you feel between atypia of undetermined significance and follicular lesions of undetermined significance? Got my question, Dr. Chandni?
No, ma'am.
Now, in the third criteria, in the third category, you have atypia of undetermined significance, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You have also follicular lesions of undetermined significance. So how they are different? How these two are different, or they are the same?
They are the same, ma'am.
Actually, in follicular lesions of undetermined significance, you should have follicles, follicular lesion. You should have, you must have follicular lesion in your cytology, okay?
Yes,
But
ma'am.
atypia of undetermined significance, you can include other morphology like lymphoid neoplasms,
Okay.
parafollicular neoplasms, neoplasms with papillary formations, or papillary hyperplasia. Okay, the adenomatoid nodule with papillary hyperplasia, then parathyroid lesions. Okay.
Okay.
So atypia of undetermined significance includes other categories, can include other categories other than follicular lesions, okay? Like lymphoid or parafollicular or parathyroid or like this, okay? Now, my second question, can you assess the risk of malignancy category wise? Can you assess? Is there any scope for assessment of risk of malignancy category wise? Have you gone through the Bethesda book? for thyroid cytology.
Yes, ma'am.
Their risk stratification,
Malignancy risk classification.
malignant stratification, and the risk of malignancy can be assessed somehow depending upon the categories, and you can also recommend the surgeon about the surgical management. Okay,
Yes.
so I end with the comment that we must encourage categorical reporting
Yes, ma'am.
in thyroid cytopathology because it has improved the communication
Between the clinician and surgeon
and the
also
pathologist and can guide the surgical management.
about the management.
And for us, the investigators, it has provided a uniform template for sharing data. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So
So much.
I think our next presenter has come,
Okay.
Dr. Christie. Over to Christie to introduce the second speaker. Over to Dr. Christie.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your valuable comments. Our next speaker is Dr. Major Arnab Sengupta of Department of Pathology, Command Hospital, Kolkata, and his topic for today is Role of Pleural Fluid Cytology in COVID-19. We have some technical issues. He is joining. Ma'am, I beg your permission to just let him join for the time being.
Okay, I hope he has already joined. I hope he
He's
has
trying-
already joined.
He's trying to join, ma'am. Gaurav is helping him.
Okay. Now, I hope he will be speaking on role of pleural fluid cytology in COVID-19 patients, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Now pleural fluid cytology can be studied only in severely ill COVID patients being treated in ICU or CCU like that, because in the very severe stage with very severe lung involvement, there is pleural effusion. Pleural effusion is not that common, but if found, the pleural fluid cytology can help. The lung lesion is really very advanced and very critical for the patients of COVID-19. Most of the pleural fluids obtained are usually transudative in nature. Transudates, they are transudates as being found in other studies. The most pleural effusions are transudates with lymphohistiocytic inflammation. And hemophagocytosis is often seen in this cytological study. Now, but viral RNA is usually not detected. So the pleural mesothelial cells, they are not directly infected by the virus. And hemophagocytosis is seen in other viral infections also, like Epstein-Barr virus. And its presence is an indication of a very severe disease and very fatal outcome. Now, I hope Arnab is ready. Dr. Arnab is ready.
He's still joining, ma'am.
He's still joining now. Now, along with pleural effusion, there has been rare cases of pericardial effusion and peritoneal effusion. Very rare. And in this critical time of COVID-19, I hope Dr. Arnav's presentation will give us valuable information.
Ma'am, Gaurav could not get across to Major Arnob. So, with your
He
permission,
is not there.
he's not there.
Oh, he is trying to join but failed, or he is not there actually.
Ma'am, he's not picking up the call.
Okay, so we can conclude then, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, he's trying, ma'am. Just give me
He's trying.
just give me
So,
5 minutes, ma'am. I'm trying.
okay, we can give him time.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, meanwhile, thank you so much for such an enlightening session on the pleural fluid in COVID-19. Ma'am, would you please like to enlighten us further regarding the emerging dermatofacious fungi, that is mucormycosis in COVID-19?
Yes, mucormycosis is being found frequently in the patients of COVID-19 on steroid therapy, you know, and there is a latent period between the steroid therapy and development of mucormycosis. In our hospital, we got several cases of this mucormycosis, especially angioinvasive rhino orbital or rhinocerebral mucormycosis involving the sinuses and all. And in our RG Medical College, COVID-19 post-mortem autopsy studies are being done. So there also we found mucormycosis evident in many cases. So mucormycosis is actually a trait for this steroid treatment. And these mucors are the fungi, they are mostly aseptate fungi and with branching with occasional branching at right angle, and they are easily identified by histopathology and brought out more clearly with PAS10 and GMS10. We had our cases studied in collaboration with our microbiology department, and there we saw they are also putting the KOH preparations and this fungal culture, and it is becoming positive. So we are having our experience that COVID-19 patients treated with mucor, treated with steroid, developing mucor, and in some cases it's life-threatening also, and it is being found in autopsy also.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We have a comment in the chat box from Dr. Shejuti Dashgupta, ma'am. She says, "Thank you, ma'am. It is always a pleasure listening to you. Bearing a few technical issues, beautiful session."
Okay, thank you, Shejuti.
And I'm sure our delegates are also enthralled, ma'am, by your views on our current pandemic, which has put all of us in virtual mode.
Really, it is interesting to go through this post-COVID scenario. Now, we had a discussion recently in our department regarding the peripheral blood findings and bone marrow findings of COVID-19 patients. And the NLR or neutrophil lymphocyte ratio, we found it significant. Then we found hemophagocytosis in bone marrow also. We in bone marrow study.
Thank you, ma'am. That was hugely enthralling. And I'm sure we are all very much enlightened in this chapter of COVID-19 and its various implications. As we can all see, the virus is causing various multi-system disorders. Gaurav, did we get across to Major Arnab?
Still is not able to join, doctor.
So need some more time.
Yeah, ma'am.
Is it possible? Will it be possible to make him join?
Yeah,
Has
ma'am,
he shared
actually,
the?
ma'am, we have shared the link with him already last 24 hours ago only. But I don't know what is the problem with him. He's not able to join.
Now he is picking up his phone.
Yeah, ma'am, he just spoke me. He's trying to join, ma'am.
Has he shared his PPT with you?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
It is with you. So you can project and he can talk.
Yeah, same thing. I have just talked to him. He's just trying to join, ma'am.
Okay. Let him join and you can project the slides and he can talk.
Right, ma'am. Right, ma'am.
Now, in COVID-19 patients in our pathology laboratory and hematology laboratory, we followed the patients with this coagulation profile study like PT, INR, D-dimer study. And also we had in our central laboratory screening for LDH, then CRP, and this other markers like serum ferritin, procalcitonin, etc. And so we had our experience with them. So many study has been carried out and autopsy studies are also being done. And apart from lung lesions, we get lesions in other organs also, especially in the kidney. And we also find some comorbidities like fatty changes in the liver and all. And other kidney changes like pyelonephritis in diabetic patients. So we are getting the features of COVID-19 extensive lung damage along with uh, several other organ involvement and other evidences of other comorbidities.
Gaurav, do we have any progress with Dr. Sengupta?
I think, ma'am, you can conclude, ma'am, because he's not able to join at any chance.
Okay, I hand over to Dr. Christie to conclude the session.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anjali Madam, for such a wonderful didactic lecture on COVID-19 in plural cytology as well as in multi-organ involvement. I also thank Dr. Chandni Nakum for your excellent oration. And I also take this opportunity to thank all our delegates and our audience for being with us for this free paper session. Thank you so much.